Hello everyone, today we continue learning Python and today I'll show you how to use socket library. We'll write a client and a server. So let's start. But before we start that video, I recommend you subscribing to my Telegram channel. You will find lots of materials, modules, libraries, examples and tasks on Python in my Telegram channel. Also, I post all the announcements there, so if you want to understand what will happen to the channel in the near future, you can go here. And I respond to comments much faster than I do it on YouTube. So subscribe to my Telegram channel, link in the description down below. First of all, what are sockets for? We use sockets to build the internet. That's it. Every website uses sockets. Every app, for example, Telegram, subscribe to my Telegram channel, Facebook, WhatsApp, YouTube, they all use sockets. But there is an addition to these words, because sockets are low-level interface. So nobody really uses sockets like bare sockets. We use frameworks, and if you watch my channel, then you know about Twisted Framework. Twisted Framework helps us to build clients and servers. That's it. But how Twisted works? Twisted uses async IO and plus sockets. So what are sockets? Sockets help us to build clients and servers. That's it. You can build up Bluetooth sockets, UDP sockets, TCP sockets, and today we'll talk about TCP server and TCP client, because TCP is the most used protocol today. What I need to do? I need to import socket library, and as you can see, I have server.py file and I have main.py file, or sorry, client.py file, and I'll delete main.py because, again, we need server and we need a client. And how does that work? For example, your user, your business user, for example, your client, opens an app on his or her phone, and that app uses sockets to connect to your server. Server is just a computer with a program on it. In our case, our program is Python script, and client socket works with server socket using the internet, Bluetooth, and so on. Again, today we use TCP-ip sockets. That's it. So what I need to do? I need to import socket library like that. This library is pre-installed, so you don't need to install it with pip, for example. Then what I need to do? I need to tell you about TCP and IP. Actually, I want to make another video on TCP and IP, like the video where I explain everything about these protocols. But now I will just tell you why do we need them. Or sorry. TCP shows how to send our data. Yeah, I think I removed that part, but it doesn't matter. So TCP shows how to send your data. TCP is a set of rules. For example, you need to send your data. You need to check that your data is sent correctly. You need to check if your user sent a response and so on. If your client sent a request, for example, I will not talk about that. So TCP shows how to send your data. TCP is a protocol or set of rules, but IP shows where to send your data. So we write an IP address to choose a specific client or server we need to send our data to. For example, we have different servers. We have our own server.py, we have Google servers, we have Facebook servers, Instagram servers, and so on. And if you want to make a request to our server.py server, okay, server on which server.py script is working, you need to use IP address. So IP address shows where you need to send your data. That's it. So TCP shows how you need, and IP shows where you need to send your data. And there is one rule in TCP. Clients should send their data to the server, and server should send its data to clients. That's it. So one client cannot send data to another one without a server. So if we want, for example, to send a message to our friend, what we need to do is make something like that. So client 1, for example, client number 1 sends hello to server, and server using different algorithms sends the data to the second client. And that's how chat works. Yeah, that's how chats work. It's better to say like that. Okay, so what I need to do now? Now I need to create my server socket. And to do that, let's create a variable. So server equals socket.socket. That's how socket is created. So the first one is our module, and the second one is the class. I always say that. So module and the class. And what we need to provide in parentheses? We need to provide two things. Well, actually, there are more things, but we need to provide two main parameters. First of all, we need to provide address family, and then we need to provide it's called type, but actually it's a protocol, which we will use. So what is address family? First of all, we need to use socket dot af to find all the address families. What is AF? It's not the word you thought of, but address family. That's it. And then we need to put an underscore, and we have lots of address families in here. For example, we have AS or AF, Bluetooth, AF, Ethernet, AF. Okay, there are lots of address families, and if you want to look up all of them, you need to go down to the description to the documentation of socket library. But today we'll use simple IP version 4. So we have AF Ethernet IP version 4, and we have AF Ethernet 6 IP version 6. That's it. We use just simple IP version 4. So AF Ethernet. Then what I want to do? I want to use socket.sock, and we have lots of types or protocols in here, but we'll use sock stream. So what is socket AF Ethernet? AF Ethernet, address family. Address, IP address. So AF Ethernet, it's just an IP. And sock stream, it's TCP. That's it. So AF Ethernet stands for IP, sock stream for TCP. We created TCP IP socket. Okay, now what we need to do? We can make that socket either a server or a client. The name of the variable does not matter. So how we can make a server socket out of our socket? What we need to do is use server.bind. So what bind does? If you know, let's look at that scheme. I don't know. So as you can see, we have lots of clients on one server. For example, 100 clients on one server. And all these clients connect to a specific IP address. And what server does? Server has that IP address, so server knows on what IP address it's working, and then it connects all the clients to itself. That's it. And to give that IP address our clients will connect to, we need to use server bind to bind our server to a specific IP address again. And we need to provide a tuple. If you don't know about that data structure, you can watch my other videos where I explain it. But tuple is just a list that cannot be changed. Okay, so tuple, and we need to provide two things. First of all, we need to provide our IP, and then we need to provide the port. So what is IP address? IP address is, for example, 127.0.0.1. That means localhost, or you can just write localhost on most of the systems. But I'll write that, 127.0.0.1. And the delimiter is dot. And what is port? Port is a divider that helps you to run different programs on one server or on one computer. So for example, I will make my port 12345, and port is a positive integer. And there are some boundaries for port. So for example, if I put that big number and then I run my server, so let's run it. As you can see, port must be from 0 to that number. Okay, I will just make 12345. And why do we even need port? For example, you have your server. Your server again is just a computer, and you have a website working on the server. And the website uses port, I don't know, for example, 1450. And then we have our Python client or our Python socket. And our Python script, which has socket in it, works on port 12345. So python.sock 12345. And if our user wants to connect to our website, it will use our IP address. Again, that is just an IP address for our own computer. Nobody on the internet will see that address. It's just only we can see that address. That's it. So if our user wants to connect to our website, it needs to provide port 1450. But if our user wants to connect to that server, it needs to provide 12345 as a port. So ports are delimiters that help you to run different programs on one computer. When I will get to databases, I'll show you how that works. Okay, but now just provide a port, and lots of ports on your computer can be, you can have programs that run on different ports. For example, 80 it's a port for MySQL on my computer, and if I run my program right now, it can give me, or no, it will not give me an error, but if I run MySQL and I run one program on two ports, it will give me an error. So I use port 12345. Yeah, that's it. Then what we need to do? We need to accept clients. That's it. And to do that, server.listen. We need to call server.listen function, and we can provide an integer in here, but in the last versions of Python, it's omitted. So you don't need to do that. And just provide server listen. Okay, so what server listen does? Server listen allows our server to accept incoming connections. So if you want to work with your clients and you don't have server listen on your Python script, then your clients will not be able to connect to your server. But if you have server listen, then they will be able to connect. That's it. So today I'll just connect one client because there are lots of things I need to talk about. And in the future videos, I'll explain how to make non-blocking sockets, how to work with different clients, threading, and I think I'll talk about these things. But for now, I just accept one client, send the message to that client, and receive the message from that client. That's it. Okay, so what I need to do now? Now I need to accept that client. And to accept a client, we need to use server.accept. That's it, actually. And when server.accept returns two things. First of all, it returns client socket, so client socket, and then it returns client address, like that. So let's print client from address, and then we will print our address. So client from address, client address, then comma, connected, like that. Now, when we'll run our server and when we'll have our client in Python, in that file, we'll write the client today. We will see client from address, our address, connected. That's it. And then what we need to do, how to receive information from the client. To do that, what we can do is use client socket, because we work with sockets, client socket dot receive. Why we cannot use server dot receive? Because again, actually we can use server.receive, but let's run. As you can see, it will not give us anything because there are lots of clients on our server. And for example, there is Andrew and there is, I don't know, Joe. If Joe wants to write to the server, we don't need to listen to Andrew. We need to listen just to Joe. And to do that, we use specific client, so client socket, our client that just connected, dot receive, to get information from that client. So we receive information using TCP-IP protocols. We use internet to get information from the client. That's it. If you still don't understand that, we can have multiple clients on one server. And another addition is that does not work on one computer only. Again, we use internet. We can build a website. We can build an app. So for example, you have your phone and you have your computer. Server runs on your computer, but you can call your friend, send a message to your friend, and your friend will use internet and it will use sockets to communicate with clients and servers. That's it. So how we can receive data? I don't know if you can see that pop up, but we should provide one argument. One argument. It's called buff size or buffer size. Buffer size shows how much data or how much data we need to get from our client. So in most cases, buffer size is in power of 2. So for example, 2, then 4, then 8, then 16. But the most common one is 2048. Okay, so we will receive 2048 bytes from that client socket. That's it. And let's save them to data, and then let's print that data. So again, sum up. We create a socket. We bind that socket to a specific address. We accept. We allow. After that line, our client can connect to our server. Then we accept one client only. We print from what address our client connected to our server, and then we get 2048 bytes from our client, and we print these bytes to our console. That's it. Now what I want to do, I want to run my server, and as you can see, my server is not stopping. Why? Because server accept is a blocking function. So blocking function is a function that does not allow your code to go any further. So for example, if I run input right here and input then print 1, for example, I run my code again, I cannot see 1 because input is a blocking function. When I will write, for example, 2, I can see 1 because again, input worked. Input is a blocking function. Blocking function is a function that blocks execution of your code for a specific amount of time or for a limited amount of time. I'll talk about that in the next video about blocking functions and non-blocking sockets. Okay, so now our socket is a blocking one. So server accept, data receive, block our code execution. That's it. So I already run my server, and now what I want to do? I want you to go to your terminal, and I want you to use telnet feature of the Windows. If you don't have telnet, if you cannot work with telnet, then wait a minute and we'll write our client on Python sockets. So telnet, then we need to connect to localhost. Again, localhost is just 127.0.0.1, but for people. It's just a rename. And then we need to provide the port we are connecting to. So telnet, it's a feature of Windows or of Linux or of Mac that helps you to make requests to a specific web servers. So in our case, we are making TCP/IP request to our server. And because I need to connect to that specific server, I don't need to connect to google.com, to facebook.com, and so on. I need to provide that address. So localhost, again, it's a rename of 127.0.0.1, and our port 12345. Let's run, connecting to localhost, and okay, we don't have anything in here, but what will happen if I will go to run? We will see client from address, localhost and port, I'll talk about that later, connected. But as you can see, 63378 is not the similar with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why? Because we need to separate our clients. For example, you have Andrew and you have Joe. If you want to separate Andrew from Joe, you need to have specific dividers. And in our case, every client is also having a specific unique port. That's it. So we connected, and now what we can do is write some data. Let's write 1, for example. I press 1 and I press enter, I think. Enter, okay, our program stopped, and let's go right here. As you can see, 1. So we used the internet, we used sockets to send the information from our terminal, from our client, I can say it right now, to our server. And we sent 1. I will talk about B. Okay, I will talk about B right now. So why do we not receive 1 as an integer or as a string, but we receive a strange data type B? Actually, B it's bytes data type. And why do we receive bytes? We always receive bytes when we send the information from the client to the server. Even in Twisted, we receive bytes. And again, Twisted is just a framework that uses sockets to help programmers to not to use sockets. Okay. So why do we receive bytes? But we receive bytes because clients and servers cannot talk in data structures. So for example, we cannot send 1 to our client. We cannot send 2. We cannot send a dictionary. We cannot send a list. But how we can handle that? We cannot send hello as a string to our client. We handle that using bytes in Python. So what are bytes? Bytes, it's a string with encoding. If you want me to say it quickly. String with encoding. And how to make a bytes out of a string? What we need to do is use string hello, for example, dot encode. And we need to provide one thing in here. We need to provide an encoding. For example, UTF-8. Actually, a lot of people will say that we cannot provide an encoding, so we can leave it out. But I want to say that every client and every server should have the same encoding. So for example, if you use UTF-16 on your server, you need to use UTF-16 on your clients. If you use ASCII and UTF-16, then you can run to some serious problems in the future, or even now when you encode and decode data. Okay, so you need to use encoding as UTF-8, for example, the most popular encoding nowadays. And what do I do here? I encode my string, my hello string, 2 bytes. Let's copy that and let's go right here. So print encode. Let's run, and as you can see, be hello. Nothing has changed, but if I will put characters from Russian language, for example, привет, which means hello, and I'll run my code again, you will see that we have that. Because by default, only English letters are, only Latin letters are in our UTF-8 encoding. All the other letters should be encoded. And as you can see, I cannot send привет, but I can send these bytes. It's bad to say these bytes. And yeah, we just simply send these bytes to the server or to the client. So again, if you want to send an integer, for example, what you need to do is translate that integer to a string, because only strings can be translated to bytes. For example, string1 dot encode. Then let's run, and as you can see, b from 1. The same result we received from telnet. Okay, now what I want to do. I think you understand that we can receive bytes only. We can receive only bytes. That's it. Now let's write our client. Actually, what I want to do, I want to copy all of my code and paste it right here. I'll change some variables, but why do I even need to paste or to copy and paste my code? Because if you use UDP or TCP on the server, you need to use TCP on your clients. You cannot mix up different protocols. That's not how that works. And as you can see, I use socket AFNet, so IP, socket sockstream, TCP on my server. And because of that, I need to use the same protocols on my client. As you can see, socket AFNet, socket sockstream. That's it. But then there are some problems with our client. So let's write client instead of server. And the first thing I want to do is I want to delete all of that. I want to only leave server.bind. So again, I said that we have lots of clients, but only one server. When actually we can have different servers, but that's all of the clients will connect to one server in our case, okay? And let's go right here. So bind binds a server to a specific address. If I write client.bind, our client will become a server because we use bind. But to connect to the server, instead of binding our client to a specific IP address, what we need to do is use connect. So again, bind binds your server to IP address, to a specific IP address, and connect connects your client to the server. That's it. And as you can see, I use the same IP addresses. So right here and right here, they are the similar because we need to connect to, we binded our server to that address and we need to connect to that address because that's how apps work. Okay, then what we need to do? Actually, now we can receive and send information because we are not a server. We don't need to listen, we don't need to accept any clients because we just simply can connect to the server and that's it. What I want to do now? Now I want to, let's write input. So for example, data equals input, write some data, and then what I want to do is send the data to the server. That's it. How we can do that? We can do that by using client.send. Client.send. And after that, we'll send a specific amount of bytes to our server. That's it. Let's write data, but again, I cannot just simply send strings to my client, to my server, because again, servers and clients talk to each other using bytes. And if I want to send data to my server, what I need to do is encode that data to bytes. If you want to send, for example, 1 plus 1, so integer or dictionary or a list, need to translate that list to a string or use JSON if you know what I'm talking about, and then you need to encode that string to bytes. But again, input is just a function that returns strings, and what I can do is use encode right here, and then again UTF-8, because we need to have the same encoding as we do it. We need to have the same encoding on clients and or our servers. So as you can see, or let's write decode right here. So decode UTF-8. What I'm doing right now I'm creating my client right here. I'm connecting that client to a specific IP address and I wait for some data from our client. Then I use send, so client.send, to send that data to our server. And I use data it's a string, and I use encode to translate the data from strings, from a string to bytes. And that's it. So again, if you want to translate from bytes to string, you need to use decode. But if you want to translate from string to bytes, you need to use encode, and you need to provide an encoding right here. What I want to do after that? Actually nothing. If you want to close your connection, you can use client.close, but it's not necessary right here because our code stops and our client will disconnect anyways. Okay, now what I want to do? I want to run my client at first. Let's run it, and we receive an error. Connection refused error. Why? Because we have not run our server first. So if you want to connect to a specific IP address, you need to have some app on that address. And if you want to do that, we need to run our server first. So server, and then let's run our client. Client, write some data. Let's go to server, client from address, connected. That's great. Now let's write some data to our client. Hello dear, hello server. Let's write like that. Hello server. and exclamation sign. Hello server, and now I press enter. Enter. My process finished. My server finished too, but what we can see right here, we can see hello server. That's great. So again, we build up a server, we accepted our client and got some data from our client. And on client side, we just simply got the data from input and we sent the data to the server. That's it. Now what I want to show you, I want to show if I'll send too much data, for example, like that, and then I'll send 10 at the end. So A10. Let's run. As you can see, process finished, but when we will go right here, what you can see, oh, okay, 10 is still right here. It's a bit awkward, but let's run again. As you can see, I'll put lots of data and then 10. Let's run now, and as you can see now, we don't have the 10 right here. Why? Because again, when we use rect, we only get 2048 bytes. We don't get the whole message, because TCP and IP are stream-based protocols. I'll talk about that later, so stay tuned to Leon sockets. That's it. So, and by the way, we can use client.receive right here, so 2048, to receive information from the server. And we can use client socket.send, because again, we need to send the information to a specific client, to a specific user, .send, to send information. So these functions are similar for both clients and servers. So that's it. This was an introduction to Python sockets. If you like that video, subscribe to my channel, like this video, and yeah, good luck!